All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this new episode of Global Entrepreneur. It's been a while since I didn't shoot any new videos. Basically, I've been playing a lot of video games, and now I decided to stop and to start being a little bit more productive. And today I'm going to be talking about something very specific, which is how to find an engineering master's degree in Canada if you are an international student. So if you're coming from outside of Canada. Just to give you guys a little bit of background, right now I'm applying for one. So I'm applying to a master's in engineering in Canada. Actually not just one. I'm applying to different programs in different schools. And, I thought there's not a lot of information out there on how this process works. So, for those of you who know me in my network and would like to be interested in maybe exploring this option, this is a great option for several reasons. First of all, right now we're going through the coronavirus pandemic, and the economy is not doing very well. Companies are not hiring as much as they used to, and it's going to take a while for the economy to recover. Plus, this is going to be a long process, and I feel like now it's better than ever to go back to studying. So for those of you who just graduated or who have been working for a couple of years, I think maybe going back to school would be a great option. Canada has very specific sets of requirements for their programs, I'm gonna delve into what are the specifics of engineering and what options there are out there. I just want to also add that doing a master's in Canada is a great option because you could gain points for the for their immigration system. And so if you study in Canada and do a master's, you may be eligible for a post-graduation work permit, which could allow you to then get your permanent residency. And this is great because you can potentially stay in Canada after you study, and that's what I want to do. Or you could also get your permanent residency to then go into another program such as a PhD and have to pay less for it. That's also a great option for you guys to consider if you are an international student. And this is a very good thing to do compared to going to the US to pursue a master's, because basically it's a lot harder to stay in the US after you graduate. You can stay there and work with OPT and other things, but it's a lot harder to get permanent residency or your green card. And so I feel like Canada has great immigration options and advantages, and so I'm going to be talking a little bit about what I'm applying to and how that process worked. So I'm applying to a Master's of Engineering in Electrical and Computer Engineering. The reason why I want to do ECE or Electrical and Computer Engineering is because the aerospace industry requires you to be a citizen of that country or a permanent residency or a permanent resident in general. And so, I want to pursue a master's that's closely affiliated to what I've done before, but that will also be useful for me to find a job later once I graduate and be able to stay in the country. And so, also electrical and computer engineering is something that really interests me because I'm interested in the Internet of Things, connecting smart devices, artificial intelligence, autonomous vehicle controls. And I've already done a lot of signal analysis and signal processing, especially applied to satellite navigation when I was in my undergrad program. And I thought this would be a smooth transition into something that I like. Alright, so just like I mentioned, there are different programs, right? So basically in Canada, there's two main options. There is a Master's of Engineering, and then there's a Master's of Applied Science. And these two are significantly different. So, first of all, I'm going to talk about the Master's of Engineering. So, the MENG, as it's called, is basically a master's degree where you do not do research. So, You don't have to fulfill a thesis or anything. You just have to take classes, and by the end, usually you either take, so for the masters, you either take 10 classes or 8 classes in a project. This is generally how it works. Now, the thing about this masters is that it doesn't allow you to transition into a PhD program later, because basically you haven't done any research in your graduate studies, right? So this is more if you want to go into industry, or if you want to learn a lot more about specific topics, or be able to take multiple classes, and you don't really want to do research with an advisor or a professor. You're more interested in academia and not doing research. Now, the thing about this master's is that it's usually shorter, so it goes, it can be 12 months to 2 years, usually. That's kind of like the minimum and maximum period you have to complete your master's. And I guess that's something to consider when you want to apply later for post-graduation work permit, because you might not be able to get as much time for your work permit as you would do if you were pursuing, let's say, a research-based master's, which could be longer, or potentially a PhD. The other thing that's not good about this is that basically, if you're an international student, you do not get any funding, or almost like no funding for your program, and so you have to cover almost every single fee for tuition, housing, and everything else. And this is because Canada wants you to do research. And so, that's why, if you're short on funds and you think you might need scholarships to study, then I would say, maybe the Masters of Applied Science might be a better option. Now, the good thing about the Masters of Engineering is that GPA requirements are lower. Usually speaking, for, good schools, it's around a B, B to B plus. Usually it's B. So this would be 3.0 over a 4.0 scale. Or, if you're using other systems, it would be like a 75% minimum. You have to have for a 4 years minimum bachelor's degree. So if you did your bachelor's in 3 years, I don't know how that works. You should probably check the university requirements. And so, so GPA requirements are lower, and also you don't have to find a research advisor. So this is great because application is very straightforward. You just apply, and if you meet the minimum requirements, and hopefully the university accepts you, then you're good. You're ready to do your master's. Now, on the other hand, we have the Masters of Applied Science. Now, this master's has the option to later transition into a PhD, and so it's a research-based master's degree. So the way it works is you usually take around 4 courses over 2 years, so that's not a lot, but you have to do a lot of research, and usually you have to publish your thesis in very recognized journals, and work closely with professors, and so this might be a lot harder. The GPA requirements for some universities are the same as the Masters of Engineering program, but the thing is that sometimes it's a lot higher because they know that later you will transition into a PhD, for which you need higher grades to get into, because obviously a PhD is very demanding, especially in engineering. And so, GPA requirements might be a lot higher, so it might be hard to get into a Masters of Applied Science. But also the reason why GPA requirements are higher is because the university will pay you to pursue your studies. So usually speaking, universities, give you the funds and scholarships and cover your tuition and sometimes even housing. And there's, a vast array of scholarships you can apply to, even if you're an international student. So that's great about Canada. In the US, it's usually harder to get scholarships as an international student, but in Canada, there are several options out there. And there's also very specific scholarships depending on the program which you pursue. So if you're doing science and research and innovation, it's usually a lot easier to get paid for your studies. Okay, so for both programs, the only difference when it comes to applying is that for a Master's of Applied Science, you need to find a supervisor. Now, let's say, other than that, let's look at the other requirements that are necessary. So first of all, you will need letters of recommendations from your professors, right? So you might need 2 to 3 letters of recommendation, and usually they want so the admissions team at the universities want the letters of recommendation to be from professors that know you really well from school, and have been working closely with you either in a project or on research. And so you have I guess the minimum is usually 2. Some universities require just 1 letter, but generally you will require 2. So let's say try contacting professors so you get 2 letters, but some universities require 3. So 3 letters, I think it's a lot. The other thing I want to add is that sometimes, if you graduated from school a couple of years back and you have been in industry for a while, then one of those 3 letters can be from one of your bosses or someone you know from work who's usually your superior or your mentor, and then 2 letters from professors. So in any case, you're going to need 2 letters from professors. So what I would suggest is if you're doing your undergrad and you're thinking about doing grad school, then you should probably try to get closer to your professors, go to their office hours, or just talk to them out of school, or ask them about their interests, or try to get to know them and try to work closely with them and ask questions in class so that they will know you. In my case, I got 2 professors to help me with my letters, one from management and the other one from engineering. And so, I knew them very well. I used to participate in their classes, and they knew that I was, a pretty good student overall. And they were the ones who helped me out with the letters. You'll also need a proof of English language proficiency. And so obviously, if you're going to Canada and the language of instruction is English for most universities, some universities have programs in French as well. I'm not going to talk about that because if you're looking to go to Quebec or other parts of Canada where the official language is French, or or people speak French or classes are taught in French, then you should look at those requirements on their website. But usually an English language proficiency will do for almost all of the universities or colleges. And so, there's 2 main language tests that you can take, either the TOEFL, which is the test of English as foreign language, or the IELTS. These 2 exams are, approved in almost everywhere, almost everywhere around the world. There's testing centers everywhere. But yeah, I know you might be thinking, how the hell am I going to take this exam if we're quarantined, or I can't go out in the streets in my country? Well, the good thing is that universities are now taking provisional Duolingo tests. So Duolingo is an app, so you can do it on your smartphone and send those results until this is over, and then potentially take one of those official exams later. Or if not, you can just do internet-based exams. There's a lot of options out there. So let's say going to the university website and look out for what requirements they have. If you're coming from an English-speaking country, especially if you did your bachelor's in English, usually you're exempt from submitting an English language proficiency. And so this is great because you don't have to stress about taking exams or anything. So I guess that's a point in favor for those of you who study in English. So yeah, definitely look into what are the different exemptions. I know it's not just that. If your native language is English, but you've studied in a different country, and then you apply to Canada, then you could also be exempt. That really varies according to every university. But in my experience, since I did my undergrad in the U.S., then I didn't have to submit anything, and that was great. What else? Okay, so then you're going to need your unofficial transcript from your undergraduate or graduate programs. So if you previously did a master's in something else, or if you did your undergraduate studies and you've completed them, then you're probably gonna you will have to submit your unofficial transcripts. Basically, they require you to have some sort of grading scale where they can see this, and I think it'll be good because you can just submit an electronic transcript, and then later on, if you do get accepted into the program, you'll have to have your university mail your grades to the college or university where you got accepted in. And so just take that into account. Now that we're through this coronavirus thing, you can also request your university to send the official electronic transcript so they don't have to mail anything. But there's specific requirements. I think it has to be an academic advisor from the university sending that, or a representative. So also look into those specific requirements in detail. But this is just to give you a general idea of what you have to do. Okay, so most universities will also require a 1 to 2 page statement of academic intent or academic purpose. And obviously this makes sense because universities want to know why you're applying to their school and their university in particular. So my advice is here you have to, this is sort of an essay, but you don't have to get, into like fancy words or like fancy literature. All you need to do is like clearly explain why you want to pursue graduate studies and why you would be a good candidate or fit for the program. And so, in my case, I talk a lot about, my double major and how I'm an entrepreneur and I want to develop new technologies and how I feel like graduate school would be great to keep on learning and developing new ideas. And so generally I look into the university's like research labs and also, their advisors and their entrepreneurship centers. That's really important to me in particular, and also their curriculum. So I looked into what are different classes offered in Canada. And obviously different schools have different classes that they offer. Some schools have like software management, some others have artificial intelligence, and some others have like Internet of Things and smart systems. And so, every program's different and every school's different. And so looking into those things and putting that in words and just saying, this is a great school for me and I'm a great candidate for this school because of X, Y, and Z, that's really good for you to write in your statement of academic intent. Also, I would suggest getting advice from your professors for writing your letters of recommendations if they know you well. Usually when you talk to a professor and ask for a letter or for them to write your letter, you're going to have to provide your resume, your statement of academic intent, your grades, and anything else you've done. So like research projects, patents, anything you've done before that can be helpful for them to write your letter of recommendation. Okay, so some universities will require a photocopy of your degree. So, once you graduate in your ceremony or your, graduation, you'll get a piece of paper that says, congratulations, you graduated. Basically you're going to have to photocopy that and just send that as an electronic file as well for them to see that you have successfully graduated. Then, there's very specific program documentations. Some schools require you to also, what was I going to say? Give me a sec. Yeah, so some schools require you to fill out a specific form for their university where they ask for specific questions. But generally what you do is you log into the university website and then you look into the specific engineering program you want to apply to. By the way, the Masters of Engineering and Masters of Applied Science in Canada is for almost every single engineering discipline and not just electrical and computer engineering. So if you're applying to civil, nuclear, aerospace, whatever it is that you're applying to, same things are gonna apply. So like GPA, the letters, the statement of academic intent, the transcripts, all of what I've just mentioned is going to be necessary for your application. All right, so so basically you're going to have to go into the university website, pay for the application fee. It's usually around 100 to 150 Canadian dollars per university. And then, you're going to have to submit all of your files. So I would say, take the time to list all of the requirements that you're going to need and look into some programs. Because, if you apply to more universities, you're going to spend more money in admissions. And usually some schools also require like taking the GRE, which is kind of like a graduate exam that you take, similar to the SAT, if you guys know that exam. It's basically kind of like a weed out exam or to filter out people, and there's specific scores you get. It's not required for most engineering programs, but some do. So if your university requires that, check that out as well, because that's going to be another exam you're going to have to take. And so, obviously, applying to grad school takes time. In my case, it took me about 2 to 3 weeks of sitting down and putting in like 3 to 4 hours of work every single day to look into the different programs and learn how to apply. But I just wanted to make sure I was doing things right. So I wanted to, read every single requirement and everything I needed, and just be sure that by the time I applied, I felt comfortable applying to those programs. Um, there is so I wanted to talk about how I browsed or navigated through the process of applying in the first place. So what I did first is I was considering whether I wanted to do a Master's of Applied Science or Master's of Engineering, and I wasn't sure which one of the two to pursue. Now I'm a lot more inclined to doing the Master's of Engineering because I don't really want to do a PhD later. That's something out of my scope. I'm not really interested in research. I'm a lot more interested in entrepreneurship. But that doesn't mean that I'm not interested in research. I'm also considering this as an option. So I recently applied to graduate school. I think it was like 2 days ago that I just finished my applications. And so all of this information is fresh in my head, and I wanted to spit it out to you to provide value. Um, so let's see. First, we have the whole process on how to find the right school. Right. This is obviously not easy. Every school is different. What I did was, I looked into. I kind of started filtering out things. Right. So first, I looked into what are the top schools for engineering, and there's several schools like British Columbia. I don't know, Ryerson, Waterloo, and University of Toronto. There's several options out there in Canada. There's, all the schools are great, but some are better than others. And so, I looked into all those schools, and then I basically started filtering out by GPA requirements. So in my undergrad, my GPA wasn't too great. It's good enough to apply for most master's programs, but for some very hard schools to get into, I'm not eligible. And so I would say do not apply to schools if your GPA requirements are not